Shout out CTV, being with the Intercept. Peace, everybody, today. Peace and welcome. We have Melanated Agenda, Don, Open Scroll, DJ Maze, Jaded Empora, Don again, Ziriab Jamal, and Shadow was up in the house, and let me see your transcript down in the back, and Yemi. So we are gonna get started because we have wasted about 12 good minutes, about 25 good minutes. So yeah, let's get it going. Hey Chuck, how you doing today?
All is well. All is well.
Good, good, good.
Been up all night, so I'm still going.
I know that's the truth. So we are gathered here today because of that booty man, that booty head man you got on your avatar, right? Why I look like a Power Ranger in the middle of that dome?
Yeah. I'm sorry. Yeah. That's something there. It took a lot of imagination to come up with that one. But within this organization, you gotta have that kind of a mindset of sorts if you want to come up with certain types of imagery.
And somebody used that imagery this weekend to cause another heinous act.
And you know what? If you can, because I'm locked out of my Facebook. If you can, could you pull up that article or at least the footage from that? Oh, and just to let the people know that are tuning in, this past last week there was a shooting.
Easter Sunday.
Was it Easter Sunday? The 22nd or 23rd? Yeah,
I believe it said Easter Sunday.
Yeah, there was a shooting in Washington D.C., my hometown, and it was a young Filipino kid who had sniper rifles. Who was on a mission up in the Van Ness area of DC, which is more of the upper class, I guess you would say, near not far from Wisconsin Avenue, American University, up in that area. It's kind of a well-to-do area. You know, a lot of wealthy people live up there. And he didn't kill anyone, but there were 4 people who were hit, including a 12-year-old child. Can you hear me?
Oh, wow. Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, and so it was brought to my attention because normally I stay up on DC news, but I've been so busy doing other things, and I was checking out WUSA Channel 9, and the caption was police suspected gunman in quadruple Northwest shooting was found dead in an apartment with sniper type rifles and standing up. I don't know if you can, but if you could just show those images, and that'll kind of segue it right into where we want to go with this. From the article, it was the suspected gunman connected in a quadruple shooting Friday near the campus of the University of the District of Columbia in Northwest D.C. was found dead in a nearby building, according to D.C. police. 1 man, 2 women, and a 12-year-old girl was shot, and 3 of the victims were treated at local hospitals. If you look closely at this, and this is what I guess brought folks to flood my box with it, where you see here that police chief says suspect died in suicide as officers moved in. The SWAT team moved in. As you can clearly see the weapons that I have up on the table, the window, but notice the character, the big-headed guy on the wall. That was something that shocked me. It's like, whoa, what is Yaaquub doing up there? Now, I read different comments and tweets on Twitter and other social media, and a lot of the people, even I was listening to Tariq Nasheed, and he was going in on it, and I had to kind of bring a little correction. Is that image is not something that the Nation of Islam put out. I mean, the story of Yaaquub goes back to the Nation of Islam's version of the Jacob story from the Bible. But when York decided to take a hold of it, he took it into a whole new direction. And he came up with a whole new line of crazy stories that's going to blow your mind when you hear it tonight. In fact, the the Nuwaubian Holy Book, the Holy Tablets, there's a whole section on it that I did an article on a few years ago.
You want me to
That
pull that up next? Sorry.
if you can, well, actually, I
Yeah,
want to use it.
I already got
I
it
got
keyed up. Whatever you need it.
I want to. What I'm gonna share my screen, and then I guess I'm gonna come at it from this angle. But I'm just trying to lay the backdrop for folks that may not be up on it. That whole Yaaquub story is that generally in the Nation of Islam's teachings that there was a bighead scientist by the name of Yaaquub who with playing with magnets or something in the back of his mother's yard or something like that, um, was came up with the idea to create a wicked and evil people who would rule the world, and in Allah's own good time, he would come back and manifest himself as being Allah, something to that effect. That is too much. It's not really that relevant, that portion of the story. What is relevant is this character Yaaquub that York had innovated, and how he was able to build a narration around the character, and the storyline that he put together plays kind of into the possible motives. Now, let me make this clear. The individual, I personally, I don't think that he was a Nuwaubian. No. He may have come in contact with the Nuwaubian teachings, because you can't have an image like that and not do the background on it, because it's just too out there for you not to, if you're going to hold on to it and not have some kind of background information on it. And part of the story that I thought was kind of unique, and some DC reporters that I was speaking with thought it was pretty intriguing, was how this character Yaaquub wanted to, well, he sought revenge on the people who scorned him or laughed him to shame. And if you're a person that, I think this individual made this good point, that if you're an individual who is having mental issues, and you are looking for something to motivate you or that may influence you into doing your crime, in this case, it's a possibility. Not saying that of course, again, I do not believe this guy was a Nuwaubian at all. But that literature has gone out all over the place. And now with social media, these guys are online, they're pushing this stuff, old doctrine, new doctrine,
I have a
is out
question.
there. Yes.
Okay, so the little dude is Filipino, right?
According to reports, yes.
Okay, and you said there is a Filipino deity that coincides with the booty head man right there.
Well, there
piece of
is
the booty head man.
within the Nuwaubian doctrine, is the way the storyline in the York theology, there is a character that plays a role in it only because it's in reference to people living inside of the earth or on the land that can't be seen.
Mm-hmm.
You see, what we're going to go through tonight, your time, what we're going to deal with is coming from the Holy Tablets, coming from the Asians, Caucasians, and there's another thing that I'm going to be dealing with. What I wanted to do was just give the background, and I did an article on this again some time back, and ironically, it's starting to come out again because when people see that yes, it's mentioned in the news reports that it's the character Yaaquub, but then they're pointing the fingers at the Nation of Islam. I have yet to hear Dr. York, the Nuwaubian doctrine, being associated with this issue. So I kind of want to bring some clarity, and then I want to lay it out to the public who may have never even read the passages in the Holy Tablets regarding the Yaaquub. So, and it's a crazy story, but this is part of their teachings. You cannot get away from it. And in whom, like I said, if a person has some mental issues and he believes this stuff, then the character Yaaquub is his inspiration. So I hope you got your drinks.
Snacks
This
are
is going to be a crazy one.
required, and
I've already had my coffee, so I'm
snacks are
ready.
highly suggested.
All
I'm
right.
trying to see which one of these is a little better because it's still got a little echo, but not as bad as before. They
You
say
know, when
something.
you, I don't know if you turn your mic off, but then it just gets very quiet and sharp, and then it comes
Yeah.
back up.
I'm gonna stay muted while you talking. Do you want me to put the article up now?
Let me try this. Let me try to share my screen
Mm-hmm.
and tell me how it looks, because this is from my website, and I want to have the larger pictures, so it's a little better than just the article itself.
Okay.
Hold on. Okay. Let me see if I got this right. Give me a minute.
I still say it's a Power Ranger in the middle of that booty head. I'm looking dead at it.
Okay. Can you see my screen?
Mm-hmm.
Has it gone over to the website?
You on the portion, you on the editing portion, but yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that yeah. Let me hide this because I hate those things on it. Can you see where it says asking the Nuwaubians who was Yaaquub?
Mm-hmm. Everything you can see, we can see. Well, they might not be able to see it as good if they on the phone, but
Yeah, I mean I was looking
people
at
on
that
computers
delay.
and television should be able to see it better.
Okay, let me get this thing. All right, yeah, I see it now. Okay, I got it on another side.
Mhm.
Okay, so here's where we're going to go. All right, so here's the article. Asking the Nuwaubians who was Yaaquub? The following claims made by Malachi York launched him into infamy as the supreme grand master of pseudoism. I'm hearing an echo in the background.
Mhm.
Oh, okay. All right. So this is something that York had stated on an audio recording where he said, the Nation of Islam's lessons are wrong. So this was a previous article saying that if the Nation of Islam's lessons were wrong, then why are you using the stories of Yaaquub? So the purpose of this article in question is to demonstrate to you Malachi York's inconsistent positions regarding the Nation of Islam's doctrine. His plagiarism of the Yaaquub story, making alterations that produce some strange stories. This is an example of York's nonsensical innovations to that Yaaquub story, which was exclusively done for personal profit because he could not have believed the stuff that he was writing. And it just goes to show how York, you know, thought of his followers in this type of stuff that we're going to go through tonight. The story is extensive and convoluted. However, I'll point out the central issues that York uses to establish the false narratives linking Yaaquub to the so-called terrors or the conehead people. So let me pull this guy up. This is the image of the individual that was on the wall of the would-be assassin.
Okay, Chuck, you are live on the 2 channel. So yeah, you got people coming in from over there. Tamika,
It's
peace
on
and
my
love.
channel.
Yeah, that's a
Oh
Power
wow.
Ranger in his forehead. Scroll back up real quick. Right, the chin of the Power Ranger is right on his eyebrows. You see it?
Oh, you killing me. All right, let me try to keep my composure here. All right, so this is not to be confused with the cultural ceremonies or expressions within societies of various indigenous peoples of the world who would employ artificial cranial alterations or head flattening binding. Now, I want to make sure, because see, I'm looking at, can we pause right here, because what I want to do is you see this right here, I can't get rid of it, so I may just go to the article itself. So I think I might just try that. Okay, is this better?
Mm, yeah.
Okay, let me
No, the words are more blurry. Do you want me to try?
can you stop? Can I stop sharing this real quick?
Mm. Oh wait, that's mine. Yeah, I put it in the back.
Yeah, you stop. Okay, you pause it. Okay, let me,
Mm-hmm.
because I want to do something real quick and make it better for the viewers.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. So yeah. So as you can pretty much get the gist of where I'm going with this, and
You want me to put
when
it
we
back up
read
now?
when I read the story, and is a particular line that is of interest that you got to focus in on it, because it could be, not saying that it is, but just
Mm-hmm.
speculating, but it could be one of the motivations to for this guy to go and want to shoot people
Mm-hmm.
based
You want me
on
to
this
put
guy.
it back on the screen?
If you can bring me back up.
You still up? I haven't put the screen back up yet.
Oh, you on my my screen is still shared.
No, it's shared, but I haven't put it on the screen yet.
Okay, yeah,
I was
yeah,
waiting for
I'm
you to
ready.
tell me.
Yeah, I'm ready with you.
Okay,
Ready when you are.
there you go.
All right. Okay. All right. So here is the uh, head flattening that some groups, some native peoples had a tendency to use. And a lot of individuals like to use this and claim that, oh, extraterrestrials and all this, all this nonsense. But that's just to give you an idea and get that anatomical from the 1921 German edition. You can go to the website and do your own independent research on that. Like, I supplied you with a few sources that would kind of give you a direction. So here we go. We're going to deal with some strange stuff tonight. So here we are. Is a group called the Taros. Now I'm going to read along. This is the article, so let's walk through it. You might read faster than me, but we're just going to make some just how it goes. Okay, so the Taros, as they're called. Now this is coming from York, from his book. Let me make sure I have. This is coming from the Holy Tablets. So Taros, as they are called by the Alemanni Germans. However, originally they are called Sunaeans or Sinin. You'll also find the Diwani, also called leprechauns or bucks, and you'll also have the Deros, originally called Sumuin or Samian, and Ganesha or Ganesha, Ganapti. That is the fourth and favorite son of Siva. He is called the king of obstacles and the leader of the impish attendants of Siva. He was used before battles to prevent snags and hindrances. He is portrayed with an elephant's head and a pot belly and two forearms, often holding a pot of sweet meals and a radish, or holding one of the tusks in his hand and prayer beads. The fact that this Hindu deity has an elephant head and trunk is no coincidence. And you also have the Shiyuk, or Danakiel, who originally left the planet Risk and took residence in Shambhala, but eventually had to set up their own cavern. The chief of the Danakiel, called Rabboni Furuk, I'm sorry, we're going to be some mispronunciations, but who cares? Furuk, the Negroid seed or Moor, married a Sunayan Taro, the Mongoloid seed, a brown seed chieftain's daughter named Lucinas, against her will, just to establish peace in the caverns. For the Danakio were being by the Sumayan Daros, who the Sinian Taros were supposed to keep under control because they were violent, destructive, and aggressive beings. So, to bring about a peaceful coexistence, the chief of the Taros, whose name was Lamsa, gave his daughter to Forkor, the chief of the Danakio. Forkor gave his daughter Radia to Lamsa, chief of the Taros, to marry his oldest son named Hatip. Lucenes bore Forkor no children. She, by shadow hour, nighttime, left the caverns and went to the surface and sought out Forkor's brother, Yishak, who lived in the best part of the planet, the enclosed garden of Saudi Arabia in Mecca. She was welcomed by Yishak, who hated his twin brother, Forkor, who took his wife, Lucenes, as his own. Forkor and Yishak had 5 other brothers, namely Amo, Hasi, Rahma, Ahsad, and Tunde. All save the first 2 stayed within the caverns. There was originally a village within which an illegitimate birth between Yishak and his brother Forkor's wife, Lucenis, occurred. Lucenis was mad at her father, Lamsa, for giving her away, for she always longed to marry a Taro such as herself. So she, out of anger, had a child by Yishak, the disagreeable yet reformed brother of Forkor. So her child would be of no service to her tribe. They gave birth to an unsightly being with the head the size of 2 men, by no fault of his own. As a child, he was the object of much attention because he had the head the size of 2 men. And when he grew up, many referred to him as the Bighead Scientist. Yaaquub, as he was called, wanted to get revenge on his people for their scorn and mockery. Pause. The reason I was pointing this out, because here this individual Yaaquub, according to Malachi York, this is not Nation of Islam's teachings. This is exclusively Dr. York. And this particular line is what kind of caught my attention when I went back over it, because this individual, who had to have read at least something about the background of this character that he has on the wall in the death room. And he's dead now, and so we can't question him on what his motivations was to go out and shoot these innocent people. Now, could it be that he's trying to get revenge, and the motivation or the justification, it can be found on the face on the wall, which is that of Yaaquub? Because, hey, what does it say? As a child, he was the object of much attention because he had the head the size of 2 men. And he grew up, and people refer to him as a big guy. But he sought to get revenge on his people for their scorn and mockery. If you have some type of mental issue, now this is what I spoke with someone who's involved with the case, and they made an interesting point that if you do have some mental issues, something like this would be, hey, this is just what I needed as a justification or a motivation, because people use different things as mascots to aid them or that they can find comfort in. But let's go on. So keep that in mind, because remember, this guy's dead, but he left something that was very revealing. That's the only image that they had in that room, right by the window where um, some of this situation where he died. As a matter of fact. So, now where it says here that Yaaquub, as he was called, wanted to get revenge on his people for their scorn and their mockery. This was an opportune time for disagreeable Palladians from Pleiades, a star cluster in the Taurus constellation, to tap into his brains and inspire an unsightly thing. He was led to have faith that he could create a race of people that would rule over his own people and then the whole planet. Holy Tablets, chapter 3, tablet 4, 26 through 45. Now, as you can see, this pseudoistic narration has zero credibility nor any historical standing in reality. It was another tactic York used to cash in on the Nation of Islam's teachings and sway followers who may have believed that York was explaining the lessons of the Nation of Islam, as well as the teachings of the nations of God's and earth, a ploy to gain more followers. The reason I'm pointing that out is because York, when he was claiming, even when the Holy Tablets was initially released, he built it and we promoted it for him, and he would go live and said that he is fulfilling the prophecies of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, that the holy, because I think it was the theology of time, where the Honorable Elijah Muhammad says that the holy Bible that you're holding in your hand must soon give way to that holy book which no man has seen. And York was claiming that the holy book that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was quoting from was his book, the Holy Tablets. Now, we know anyone who's ever been Ansar or in the early days of the Holy Tabernacle Ministries, this is before they were referred later on as Nuwaubians, where York would constantly always mention that he was the true successor to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and that the followers of the Nation of Islam should come over to him. And as part of that ploy, during around the time of 1995, 96, York released about several books that was designed to go after the Nation of Islam and I guess solidify York's position at the top as being the true successor to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, because in one of the audios, York had made the point that aside from the other beings that speak through him, because York passed himself off to the followers as being an avatar, where beings from other worlds would speak through him. Aside from the fact that he gave a list of about 7, one being Jesus Christ, Zoza from Third Dynasty in Egypt, but he also pointed out that 3 additional deities or 3 additional people are speaking through him from the grave, which was Noble Drew Ali of the Moorish Science Temple, Clarence 13X of the Nation of Gods and Earths, or the 5% Nation at the time, and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And York said that Elijah Muhammad came to him and told him, "Asa, clear my name." And that spearheaded his book series, The Supreme Mathematics, another name of the nation coming out of the Nation of Islam. But the Supreme Mathematics series, one book was called Sheikh Daoud versus W.D. Fard. Another was called, of course, the Problem Book, which was a hardback book of the lessons of the Nation of Islam, 5%ers, the additional lessons, all those things woven into one was put in a hardback book. Then there was, of course, the Holy Quran Circle 7, a green book with red print. That was released also during that short span. He released a book called The Postgraduate Renewal of the Lessons, Zig Zag Zig, which was the Nation of Islam and 5% lessons, where York had their lessons, and then he answers the question and gives his spin on their doctrine. Also, he released in that time, who was Clarence Jowar's 13X, the book of the 5%ers. It was a thick black book, and I think on page 106, if I remember, it was in that publication for the first time York actually went in and started attacking Minister Louis Farrakhan. But I digress. I just want to give you a little background on that. But again, if you go back to the story of the Yaaquub Holy Tablets rendition, you see that York brings in beings from the Pallades. It gets worse. Believe me, it gets worse as we go on. So, Pharaoh's scenario. This
Hold
must be
on,
made
Chuck,
clear.
1 second, because people coming in late and then they. Okay, so what's going on is the guy that did not the subway shooter onslaught, the shooting that happened on Easter Sunday in DC. When they went to his apartment, they found a picture of that Yaaquub guy on his wall, and it's from one of York's illustrations. Y'all follow me so far?
Can you hear me?
So that's why all of this is relevant. Okay, let's continue.
Yes. All of this is relevant because the character that you see as my avatar, that is York's version of the Yaaquub character. Now, I consulted one of the artists who were responsible for drawing these images. I thought it was Nikki, but she told me it wasn't her, and it was this other girl. And that kind of like, okay, that explained a number of things. So as I was saying, this must be made clear. York is using excerpts from an old 1940s science fiction comic magazine called the Amazing Stories series. Now, York, as some of you may already know, York was up in the years, so he could pull a lot of stuff that, young folk may not be aware of because it's so old and outdated that it will be new news to them. And so, I'm kind of up in my years. So a lot of the things that he talked about, I remembered, just being around my father so much because my father had a lot of this stuff. And, we would watch Chariots of the Gods. So when he did that plagiarizing of the Chariots of the Gods documentary, not the book, but the documentary, and then he put it in a book, The Science of Healing, I knew that's where it came from. So because the documentary came out in 1973 in America, and it usually played late night before. This is before cable television. So my father and I would watch the Late Show on CBS and Channel 9 in DC. And so I remember watching Chariots of the Gods with him. We watch it all the time. And so naturally, when I was reading the book and then I heard it, and I was like, "Oh wow!" I remembered it line for line because that's how much we watched it. Because it wasn't nothing that was on at like 2:00 in the morning before the TV went to snow. So anyway, so in American art,
hold on, how old is York
right now? I don't remember exactly how.
Isn't he in his 70s?
He's in his 70s because he was born in 1945.
45.
So just pop in when you get the exact number because I don't remember because his birthday is coming up soon. Because I was just listening to one of the Nuwaubian broadcasts, and they were praising the fact that they're going to have a quote Zed festival this year, which is a celebration of York's birthday. Yeah, American artist named Richard S. Shabers came up with stories of an ancient underground civilization that looked like Indian elephants, and that there were people with cone-shaped heads and carrot-like noses. This is from one of those illustrations. Now, this is a tarot. This is not what you would see in York's. Yeah, I got the picture that you're talking about. Yeah, he used to be one of York's main teachers. That's Haru Hotep. He has this little cult that he developed up in England, and I forget what he calls himself now, but yeah, he was part of the so-called triad of Atum Re, which were 3 teachers that York had put together to go out and teach rather than he do it himself. But we'll go over that when it's necessary. So this is coming from 1945, December 24th, 1945, of their depiction of a tarot. All right. Now, the editor of the Amazing Stories magazine promoted Shabers' stories known as the Shaber Mysteries. York extracted parts from the Amazing Stories magazine, innovated the story, and added it to his publications and sold them to his followers and to the general public. Here's one where this story is coming out of. Amazing Stories, and if you can see it, it's pretty fantasy. It's a typical fantasy magazine. But when York is teaching this stuff, this is supposed to be right knowledge. This is supposed to be facts beyond doubt. This is supposed to be the truth, because remember, York had said that in 1990 that all that stuff that he was teaching about religion was false, and all that stuff about Islam, that too was fake, because he said that on the audio call, while we used Islam and a number of other recordings at that time, pointed out how to him Islam was the dumbest religion with a lot of unresearched stories and claims, that is the best place to hide up under and not be detected. So if you get the audio, or you can go to my website, because I have a transcript of it and the video on my YouTube channel where York talks about why we used Islam. So let's go on. So the tarot. Now this is again coming from the Holy Tablets. The tarots that have an abundance of pigmentation in their skin are descendants of their elder gods from the planet Jomon, or Arcturus, in the Boots constellation. Again, if you know anything about the Nuwaubian doctrine, he's always pointing out there in space, and he's going to take you out in space. Because remember, York is a self-professed extraterrestrial being coming from the 8th planet in the 19th galaxy called Ilion. And risk, as he always explains, risk is coming from the Arabic word razak, one of the attributes, one of the 99 attributes of Allah. And it's supposed to mean plentiful, or to be, I think it was called beneficial, plentiful, things along that line. All right. So
if you have time for a question before you go to the next section.
Yeah, if anybody have a question, yeah, I'm happy to stop it.
Jasmine said, why hasn't anyone done like an in-depth Netflix type special on the Nuwaubians?
Well, that's a good question, but then again, there have been minor documentaries. Matter of fact, I helped some young college kid do a little documentary. I haven't even seen the thing. That's you did send me a raw copy.
Hey y'all,
there have been people who
documentary. I'll do it.
There have been people who put things together on this, but it's so extensive, and because the ideology shifts and changes, it can become confusing. Because on one hand, you'll be talking about one thing that was at a particular stage of the Nuwaubian doctrine, and then when you get exposed, or if it becomes clear, he kind of shifts it into a new direction, and then he's moving into something else, and then he'll reflect back on it and then say, oh, this is what I meant, and this answers that question, you know. And then he has to dumbfound his audience and claim that what I've been teaching you were schools. I'm hearing an echo.
Oh, hold on. I'm sorry. I forgot to mute myself.
Okay. So he would claim that all of these things that he taught were schools. And of course, in upstate New York, on the video and audio that was released called Elohim and the New Covenant, he talks about how the first school was Islam, then Christianity, and then at that time it was Judaism. And then it was during this period that he had pulled away from Islam because the thing that was going on with Bilal Phillips and the Sunni Muslims, and then that book, The Ansar Cult in America, had to have forced him to change his ideology and change his doctrine. And then the sisters had to take off the veils. It was no longer being considered Muslims. And then he started trying to hide up under the banner of being an Israelite, even to the point where they were not considered typical Israelites, but they were the true Israelites. And then he came up with this idea or claim that before we were Muslims, we were Hebrews. So he dropped the name Islamic. So initially the cult was called the Nubian Islamic Hebrews. So around 1990, 89, 1990, when the Bilal Phillips book came out and people were starting to question him on it, he took away the Islamic part and they referred to themselves as the Nubian Hebrews. The garb changed from the typical white garb of the so-called righteous as Ansarullah. And then we started putting on this new outfit called a khamis, where we had the little kuppah, like the yarmulke, had the tassels along the borders of the garment with the blue strip in it, the gold sash that you find mentioned in the book of Revelation, the one in Revelation 1:13, when it talks about I turned and saw the one who had eyes like flames of fire and all that kind of stuff. So it was during that period that he started shifting. Okay. So let's get back to this real quick. So I'm what I'm doing is I'm quoting him on a couple of references to the tarots. So because they bored further into the earth, they were because they were able to keep their sanity because of crossbreeding. Let me read that again. I got tongue-tied. Because they bored further into the earth, they were able to keep their sanity because of crossbreeding. The tarots took on different forms, and others look so human they can come to the surface and not be noticed. Of course, they'll have these quotes. So anyone who, because the Holy Tablets you can find free online, so it's not something you can spend $100 because I see people are selling them on eBay for $500, $1,000. And matter of fact, they're not even selling the revised edition. They're selling the old version that first came out, which looked like a Bible with a little crown on it. That version York had to remove because it was so full of errors, typos, pages missing. And he, of course, summed it up in saying that the printers who they went to had sabotaged the release of it because they were Christians. Anyway, so you can go over there. I think Nuwaubian Facts. They have a link to it because they uploaded it on their website. So if this is coming from this is figure 491 of the
Onslaught wanted to know that York speaking alien tongues during his lectures.
Never has York ever spoken in an alien tongue. The only alien tongue.
Yeah, it sounds crazy because this is the end result. This is years of him layering stuff on top of layering stuff. So by the time he got to this stuff, everybody was pretty much burnt out from trying to figure it out and was just like, all right.
Yeah, by this time
he's been there a while now. I don't know how the new people came in on this.
I don't even know if Listen, by this time, by the release of the Holy Tablets, see, the Holy Tablets was to, it had many different results, one of which shows that no black man has ever released so many books in one lifetime. Matter of fact, he had whispered the rumor that his name is in the Guinness Book of Records as having the most books ever written. 500 books, 1,000 books. Not, I even did an article on that, which debunked that whole idea. Which you can go to the website and you can pull it up. It's in Right Knowledge Gone Wrong. But
One second.
yeah, by this time, the
See, I
followers were
told
sucking
y'all
anything.
to go back and watch the old videos. All you got to do is type in Chuck Morgan on my video search, and all of them come up. Chuck Morgan has a channel. You just type in Chuck Morgan. That's why y'all confused right now, because y'all didn't listen. Y'all didn't understand the assignment. Y'all confused. Yes.
Yeah, and that's why I wanted to. I kind of wanted to wait it a little bit to get more people in. But they can look. They can go back over the video when it's done.
But
And
no, I'm talking about the part where how did they stay there? And he talking about he got superpowers. Anybody would have left. We got victim interviews and everything else.
Yeah.
And
Well,
the magic dust
let me
that
tell you
came out
something.
of his and every
Let me tell
other
you something.
cult leader's fingers.
Before he even got to this stage of the Holy Tablets writing, there were books, like I give you the one that I always quote. It was the man of miracles in this day and time. In that publication, there's a long list, and I put it up on the website as well, excerpts where you can see it for yourself. Some of the crazy things that York allowed to be said about him being able to heal people, walk through walls, raise people from the dead, all of this. The beings that spoke through him, all of that stuff is in that book. So I highly recommend, if you want to see the damaging effects of
They
this
said
stuff, you'll see it.
Yahweh been Yahweh turned green. You know what? Just when you think you can't learn nothing new about these folk, the last time it was your Indian braid falling off, and this time Yahweh been Yahweh turned green. I'm gonna go back on
Well, you
mute.
remember, if you remember, Malachi York had a alter ego that he created called Yanun. Even to this day, they have modified the name in the spelling, because usually when you pull up the name Dr. York or Dwight York or Malachi York, pedophilia is attached to it. So Pa Nabab Yanun is the name that they push now. He's still incarcerated as far as we know, if he's still alive, as far as we know. But going under the name Dr. Malachi York, not too many people use that. As far as his followers are concerned. So a lot of the neo Nuwaubians, the latter day Nuwaubians, they go by, they refer to him or revere him as Pa Nabab Yanun, and a few other little attributes that they put in later on. You know, it like I said, for the person who mentioned why isn't there like a Netflix type thing? Like I said, this stuff is so big, it's vast, and the lies are it's so heavy. Is you gotta pause it, rewind it, and then break it down and then show where it pops up later.
Everybody's reaction is encapsulated in that one sheriff on that news report where he said, "Goddamn pyramid."
Yeah.
He said, what did he say? Spaceships, aliens,
Mm-hmm.
goddamn pyramids.
Yeah.
He was just so confused. Don't ask them type questions because we don't know. Probably because you told one of them girls to draw it like that.
Oh, she was what was the question?
He said why he got a labia on his head.
Oh, listen. As we read on, you'll get the point. Because I have another article that I wrote called "Can Edomites Be Nuwaubians?" because it goes into this whole Asian thing. And if you look closely at this depiction of a tarot, this is the York concept now. This is not Carrot Nose with a fedora hat and a trench coat. That's the tarot according to Amazing Stories from the 1940s. This is the York rendition. Now, the artists, I must give credit to, they were some of the baddest sisters to ever do art, and they got no credit for it. They got no acknowledgement for it. People assume that York did it, from Nikki Lopez to Joyce Hayes. I forget the other sister's name. It was a very small few of them, and they worked around the clock to get these hundreds and hundreds of images put in the various hardback books that were to be released during this period of 1995 through 98. So let's go back to it. So here in this depiction, you have what appears to be we have little Asian eyes, pointy ears, and the cone head. Now, everybody, we're going to go through that of Saturday Night Live. We're going to go through it in a second. So here you have a dark, melanated, quote unquote, tarot, this, and this. All right. All right. So we got that. I want you to keep this in mind because they're going to come up again and we're going to explain it in great detail based on York's. The Diwani. Now, this is something that I come to find out today because my girl, she's Filipino, and she's fluent, coming from the Philippines, fluent in her culture, her language, or that, if you will. And we were going over something, and I was saying, tell me about some of those stories about this and that in the Philippines. Oh, and she started going into the different things. But look here, check this out. Diwani. You'll also find the Diwani, also called leprechauns or bucks. Now, York mentions an odd porcupine-looking creature, Diwani. And I just put this up. And what's interesting about this creature, Diwani, as some will remember, York had a co-author responsible for a few publications in the cult, and she was Filipino. In Filipino folklore, there are many stories about dwarf-like creatures that live and protect the lands. From Ancicit, she told me how to pronounce it, Ancicit, to the Tianak. I might be pronouncing that. If she was here, I'd let her come over here. One of those creatures in Filipino folklore I thought was interesting in the alteration in the spelling was duendes. Duani? Duendes. A word very similar to York's subterranean porcupine creatures, the Duwani. The typical image of a Duwande is often an old man with the body the size of a child and wearing a salaka, a native hat worn by farmers there. Now, she was showing me pictures of different places over there, because we got property over there. And you see a lot of land, but then you see a lot of debris in areas that it's like, why are they building on that land, or why are they doing nothing with the land? Well, a part of their that's their society, that's their culture. They don't venture into that area because they have these stories of beings or people. This is according to them, that gives them the okay or the nay to build on certain parts of the land because it belongs to them. And they manifest themselves to them if they see fit. But if you want more on that, I even put down some sources where you can go and get some background checks on it. The Creature of the Philippine Lower Mythology by Maximo Ramos, The Lost Journal of Alejandro Pardo, Creature and Beast of Philippine Folklore. These are two good books that will go into that and give you a whole list and background on a lot of these things. Now, this is York's rendition by way of, I think Nikki drew this one, of a Diwani. She didn't do the one with Yaaquub, but I think she told me she did this image of a Diwani. and they are supposed to live in subterranean caves within the earth, not far from these black, look like Sudanese, wearing white garb people known as Danakia who live within the earth. I mean, this stuff it gets crazy. You might think that's how crazy this stuff is. But anyway, York claimed that the Ganesh are real elephant people who live deep underground, merging and distorting stories from ancient cultures to fit within his marketing gimmick. In this case, the Deros. Okay, according to York, these elephant people are responsible for obesity, something York offers no evidence to support, just pointless pictures of overweight Europeans. So this is from a publication that York released called Shambhala and Agrata, Cities Within the Earth. I'm going to try to read it real fast. This group of insane cave dwellers were called Sumerians. Anyway, they're also called today Deros, which is a combination of words detrimental and robots. These Samian or Deros really exist. Listen to read what he said. These Samian or Deros really exist. Now, this is in a publication called the Supreme Mathematics Series, which is supposed to be under the banner of right knowledge, which is not religious doctrine. They are born by hatching from eggs that are 4 to 6 feet in diameter. They grow to 6 feet and are extremely obese. The Deros who lived in the caves are degenerated so much that they don't have much intelligence. They have 2 stomachs, and their digestive system is the same as that of a cow. Deros and cows both chew the cud, meaning when cows eat, they chew their own food, and it goes through the initial stages of digestion where it reaches a large sac. That is before the true stomach. The food is then regurgitated to the mouth for further chewing. This is called chewing the cud or cud. Many people today who are obese are descendants of the Deros. I'm talking about those people who have a serious weight problem, weighing over 300 pounds and more. Is not normal for human beings. It is obviously a hereditary glandular problem and is caused by overactive glands. Certain endocrine gland disorders, such as hypothyroidism of the adrenal gland, pancreas, or pituitary gland, can cause obesity. It is a trait of the Deros. They are from the Deros. Make note the physical similarities between the obese woman pictured on this page and the Deros. Notice the stocky build and the pot belly. So you see it for yourself.
Okay, Chuck, can you go over York's mental history real quick? You got a very imaginative mind.
It's gonna come up. It's in the article. I'm gonna come back. It's in the reason that I put it in this article is because of some of the things that we're reading. Now, these people, the Nuwaubians, parade York as being, and he himself says that he is the wisest man on the planet. But his mental state, we'll go over that shortly. So anyway, the stocky build and the pot belly. So York is making this comparison of an obese woman to that of the Dero. An obese woman, a descendant of Deros. And then you give you a few more images. Descendants of the Sumerian. The Deros have no fingertips, toenails, nipples, navel, or rectum. Their eyes are silver gray and glow in the dark. They have blonde eyebrows and a pinkish gray color skin, much like the corpse of a Caucasian and a pig, having not being exposed to the inner or outer sun, talking about inside the earth. Other than their eyebrows, they have no hair on their bodies because of a disease called trichotillomania. I may be mispronouncing that. And are responsible for the diseases trichinosis and trichinosis. They have no teeth. Their mouth appears to be full of a gummy, slimy substance. They are nocturnal and hear extremely well. They're not very peaceful and have a strong dislike for human beings. They are very human in appearance, yet far from it. Their noses are long, trunk-like, which is very similar to that of an elephant. They contend that the planet Earth was theirs originally and will be theirs again one day. So, um, I'm not going to do it, but we're going to go through it. But I hope the people are just taking a deep breath on this thing. What's equally odd and ridiculous is that the definition of Deros is a detrimental robots who are also responsible for trichinosis, something that makes no logical sense. This causes that you also have Deros, originally called Sumunian and Samin, and the Ganesh. I think what we read that part earlier. So, from some of the Indian illustrations, because remember, York always denigrated the people of India and referred to them as the original black devils. So, pertaining to Hindus, Hinduism, Indians, Pakistan, etc., they were persona non grata in Nuwaubian doctrine, yet York was biting off of it extremely when it came to his so-called spiritual, esoteric portion of the doctrine. Now, you can go, for the sake of time, you can go and read all of this. It's just some background on some of the images that you see above. One thing is absolutely clear and in ununanimous agreement. There is nothing historically connecting Ganesh to the fallacious story York presents. Many will look at the images such as these and wonder in amazement that York could teach this, speak on it, and the people believed him. It's like York had an uncanny ability to teach the silliness and most ridiculous stories, yet could have his audience accept it as fact because he said so or wrote it. And that's the way it continues to be. So if you look at some of the stuff that they still teaching, hey, because I don't believe he's writing it personally, but anything that has his name attached to it, no matter how ridiculous it sounds, if they say, "Oh, Pops wrote it," they'll believe it. And now this is York's rendition of Darrow, and of course, this is the artwork of the sisters. I don't know if Nikki or I cannot remember the other sister's name. Not Joyce, but the other. I think it was three of them. But these are the depiction of the tarots. I'm sorry, the Darrow. You got to remember tarot and Darrow. So these are the Darrow. Again, it's important to reiterate that York injects and combines portions of the old 1940s comic magazine Amazing Stories by Ray Palmer, where these Darrows and tarots are mentioned as some sort of proof to support his phony storyline. This is also seen in part on York's Holy Tablets. Let's see here. This is coming from I Remember Lumeria, page 18 of the Amazing Stories. There do appear Darrow, races that unluckily escape the notice and supervision of the elder race, and they use for evil purposes the ancient mech. Keyword, the ancient mech of the gods. Mech, designed and built for good, not evil. And it goes on. Such a race where the Jaltons, offsprings of what unknown evil life, whatever that means, evil life walking upright. Okay, evil life walking upright in a parody of a dignity, in a period of dignity and good that is man. Okay. Now, appropriating to their own evil uses the wondrous machines and mechanisms of the gods, the elder race, the flying craft, the growth and nutrient mech, the healing ray device, the awful deadly war mech, and other weapons from a dozen varying cultures of different stages of progress. This is Amazing Stories. I remember Lumeria, page 89. Now let's get into some more stuff here. In chapter 16 of the Holy Tablets, the underworld. Here we go. Remember what we just read. Now this is talking about the inhabitants of the underworld, and I pointed out page section 16, where when the Riskians came here from, when the Riskians came here, some went beneath the earth and built a large computer, a mechanical device called mech, from where they get the word Macintosh. The original name was Al Hisabat. Al Hisabat. Because there's a shadda making elongating word. That's an Arabic word right there, by the way. The disagreeable also built a large computer and called it simply Ha. How? Their Earth name IBM. Think on that. We got to pause on this one because people got to think. This is what they teach, and possibly the person who possibly had mental issues read some of this stuff, or maybe even attended some of the Nuwaubian classes that are in DC. And
I
this
wanted
may
to
have,
ask you, because some of that stuff is taken, the Yaaquub stuff is taken from Filipino folklore, right?
no. Other than the Diwanis thing, other than that Diwanis connection, as far as the name is where that part fits in. Now they do have stories about benevolent beings that protect or monitor the land, protect the land, etc. They have that in their story because in the Philippines, there's a lot of it. There's a lot of land, and there's a lot of farmers.
Because I mean, if he was already, predisposed to believe in those type of entities, then it would have
Possibly,
made it
yeah,
when he ran across York. So
possibly, and that's a good point. Yeah, I see where you're going with that angle. That is possible because if you read the Holy Tablets, and as we go on, we're going to see it. That that connection, because remember in this section pertaining to the Yaaquub thing, you also have this link to Asians, because some of these tarots, all of these tarots, and he believe it or not, he links the tarots' appearance to the people with Down syndrome, and having an extra chromosome, giving them that quote slanted eyes, but they don't have the mentality of a person with Down syndrome, just the appearance. Okay, let's go on. So the disagreeable built a large computer and called it. I'm looking at my phone. Sorry. The disagreeable also built a large computer and called it simply Ha. How? Their Earth name IBM. With these machines, they could scan the surface, pick up some scenes from all over the televised and wait a minute, what does that say? Pick up some scenes from all over the televised them. That must be a typo in the.
yeah, it meant two from all over to televise them.
They could project both thought and three-dimensional images, hologramic pictures, and star maps. Kill and destroy at will by simply flickering switches. Alter the weather, create rain, hail, snow, and earthquakes. This is all in this supercomputer called Ha. This supercomputer that these disagreeable beings down underground
Okay, so it was called HA. Because
No,
wasn't that
we're gonna go into that. We're gonna go into that because
wasn't that the name of the computer on the movie
don't
War Games?
no,
Oh, my bad.
we're gonna go into it right now. Now that should make anybody read and should say just like those fake spaceships supposed to be coming back to pick up the Nuwaubians was called a sham. But anyway,
the first thing I thought when you said how was he ran out of stuff to say. Like he just looked at it and was like, huh.
Ha. Let's stay serious. All right. So Hal, now remember, see, I don't know how old you are, but there was a movie called 2001: A Space Odyssey, and there was a computer called Hal. But we're gonna go into that real quick. So anyway, he has the nerve to insult the intelligence of his followers by linking in Hal, a computer that ran amok from the old 1960s movie 2001: A Space Odyssey. As you can read above in section 17, the disagreeable also built a large computer and called it simply Hal. Their Earth name IBM, talking about the IBM computer, 360 computer. Because remember, York had came over this bogus prophecy that the country of Belgium had this computer that could destroy the world, and it was called Hal. There was a movie called and a novel, 2001: A Space Odyssey by Stanley Kubrick. In his book released in 1968, the spaceship Discovery is run by a supercomputer named HAL 9000. The IBM used in York's crazy storyline is the International Business Machine abbreviation, IBM. York brought them together and sold the idea to his followers. York didn't even care how ridiculous the claim became, just as long as people kept buying books of his lies. So here we got the book, 2001: Space, and an excerpt from the movie, 2001: A Space Odyssey. You can pull it up on YouTube; it's there, and of course the IBM logo. Now, and the silliness continues. The following Yaaquub story takes a step completely beyond and borders on absolute insanity. You also have the Shiyuk or Danakiel, who originally left the planet Risk and took residence in Shambhala, but eventually had to set up their own cavern. Here we go. Look at that. Members of the Danakiel tribe. Pause while I take my breath. Oh man. So when you look at these guys, of course you see
man down, man down. We got one man down. Oh, hold on. Yep, I hit the button too many times. One more time. There we go. There you go.
Got it?
Yeah, let me put the circle back. Okay, make it bigger. There we go. If you would like to donate for a pair of headphones so we can get away from this echo, so I don't have to mute myself for 2/3 of the show.
Shit, I can give you some man. I made some headphones. Like a whole bunch of them. I haven't even used them. Still in the box.
Cash App is in the chat and it runs the period.
But listen, well now if you go to the article, of course you can blow it up. But Shambhala and Agrata, cities within Europe, York released a little small book, and then he re-released it in a revised version where he put a few more lines in it, then sold it as a brand new book with a pretty cover. So here we got Agrata. This is taken from someone else's illustration, not York's, but York capitalized off of it. And here we got spaceships and deep inside the Earth, and then the Earth being hollow, and so on and so forth. So inside the Earth, there's supposed to be these people called the Danakio. Now, I hope, well, maybe they are, because there's a tribe of Africans, Sudanese, who go by the same name, just with a slight alteration in spelling. As you've seen, York does play word games by just slightly altering words and coming up with new concepts. The Negro seed, or more, married a Sunayan Taro. The Mongoloid seed, a brown seed chieftain's daughter named Lucinas, against her will, just to establish peace in the caverns. The chief of the Taros, whose name was Lamsa, gave his daughter to Fukor, the chief of the Nenakio. Now, let's look at these characters here. So, earlier we had this image on the far left, and so York in the Holy Tablets has a picture of Lucinas of the Taro tribe and the mother of Yaaquub. This is supposed to be the image of the big head guy on the wall of the dead Filipino would-be assassin. That's the mother. And she, the leader of the Denakio tribe and brother of Yishak. You can't make, he made this stuff up. Man, he would have been a hell of a movie writer, but, you know, he'd rather go the cult leader route. All right. Fukor gave his daughter Radi to Lamsa, chief of the Taros, to marry his oldest son named Hatip, which is an Arabic word. Here you go. Hatip, same conehead, some type of mixed thing going on here. The Asian and the Negro. Fakor and Yishak had 5 other brothers, namely Amo, Hasi, Rahma, Achsan, and Tunde. And there they are. It's the brothers. If you get the whole tablets, you can get some pretty big photos of them. I don't have it on me right now. This is the artwork by some of the sisters. Sisters that were involved with York and testified against him, of course. But this is part of their artwork, and they did some pretty elaborate illustrations and never got the credit for it. So there you go. Now, part of the story goes, Lucinas was mad at her father, and I'm reiterating, was mad at her father, Lamsa, for giving her away, for she always longed to marry a Taro, such as herself. So she, out of anger, had a child by Yishak, the disagreeable yet reformed brother of Fukor. So her child would be of no service to her tribe. They gave birth to an unsightly being with the head the size of 2 men, by no fault of his own. As a child, he was the object of much attention because he had the head the size of 2 men, and when he grew up, many referred to him as the Bighead Scientist. Yaaquub, as he was called, wanted to get revenge on his people for their scorn and their mockery. This was an opportune time for disagreeable Pleiadians from Pleiades, a star cluster in the Taurus constellation, to tap into his brains and inspire an unsightly thing. He was led to have faith that he could create a race of people, white, that would rule over his own people and then the whole planet. So there you have it. That's the brother, the father, the mother, and then their son, Yaaquub, the big scientist. York, for over 25 years, had the ability to captivate his audience with strange tales such as these, with no requirements from his fan base to offer, manifest, nor cite evidence supporting these ridiculous claims. Nuwaubians and their supporters, who are unfamiliar with York's fantasy dogma, will preach and teach his rhetoric with absolute surety that no one will ask the question, where's the evidence? I remember just we was talking about earlier this week, we were saying that when York was in a discussion in the audio, what's it called, Dinosaurs and Evolution, where the guy's asking York to prove something. And so York said, I proved so-and-so existed by putting it out. So, oh, I'm sorry. I got distracted by something someone said in the chat. Jaded. I don't know why I can't pronounce that damn name.
Jaded Emperor. It's just Emperor spelled funny.
Yeah. You got to go into the Flugelhorst. I don't know. Is that a sister or brother?
That's a brother.
Brother,
that's the one that
it's coming.
I sent
it's
to you.
Coming. Because that's another topic that has not been touched is the Flugelhorst. And that's also in the Holy Tablets. But I'm gonna get
done at the Pickle Man.
Huh?
No, there's another one. I thought we was done after Pickle Man. There's
no. Pickle Man was just a sidebar mention. These are characters.
Go ahead, Chuck.
These are characters that York put in his books and insist are true and part of the Supreme Mathematics series. Supreme Mathematics. This is not right. This is not the early right knowledge series. This comes out of that era. This comes out of the postgraduate renewal of the lessons. So anyway, real fast. So Nuwaubians and the supporters. Where's the proof? Okay. This was how Malachi York had great success in spewing anything to his followers, listeners, and believers, not mentioning but lecturing. I'm sorry, not teaching but lecturing. And that's a point that I wanted to make, is that when he would do these quote classes, they were lectures. He did not debate any scholars. He did not debate any linguists. He would just argue with the layperson who would come to his little gatherings, and some out of curiosity, and some who had a bone to pull with him, would ask different questions. That's if he was even in the audience, because there were many times that York would be in the studio and he would be conducting classes by way of a speaker. So the audience will be sitting in the Hall of Knowledge, and there may be a brother teaching a class, like a Hill will be teaching a class, and then he gets stuck on a question, and York would pop in, like rescuing. All of this stuff was pretty much staged, Sometimes York would be sitting in the audience, and then someone would ask a question, say, I don't, this is how I remember, because I remember it's on one of the video classes where York popped up, is the pale man in the Bible, where he said, the brother asked him a question. He said, this is Yaaquub, and he said that the answer to that question, I'm not exactly sure, but we're blessed to have in our audience the master teacher, Dr. Malachi, well, back then, Imam Isa. And then he gets up and goes to the mic and, starts spewing his nonsense. So as you probably read all of this, so the people reading, so I don't necessarily have to read along with it. So Nuwaubians pushed this bogus claim that Malachi York was such a brilliant man, having 76 trillion years of knowledge and the wisest man on the planet. Asked them about crazy stories like this, and most of all, request evidence them to support the claims. York never gave any evidence verifying the names, places, or events in the above fairy tale. It's all more required that Nuwaubians defend their faith in York's teachings with a production of verifiable evidence. Now, as you asked the question, Malachi York's sanity, on this website, Nuwaubianism.com, in the section called the leader, I think it's one of the latest questions. I think what Jaru had put that one together. It goes into York's sanity and what took place just prior to the trial. So these sorts of strange claims and delusional stories of York has to leave some wondering if York was mentally stable. In early 2003, York went through forensic psychological evaluation, which was requested by his attorneys. Then the test concluded that York suffers from diagnostic and statistical manual 4th edition impression consisting of Axis 1 clinical syndrome of delusional paranoid disorder, generalized anxiety disorder, adjustment disorder, excuse me, with depression, mood, and access to personality disorders, histrionic personality traits, self-defeating personality traits, and schizophrenic personality features. This was what was brought out prior to his trial, because it was to see if he was mentally competent to stand trial. And although he was deemed able to stand trial, this was the results of his diagnosis. So if you were to look at it a little bit more, you can do your own research and get more background on how these disorders affect people. Because remember, York was sending out letters. He was sending out letters while he was in Jones County, and even after that, back in 2004, that certain extraterrestrial beings that used to visit him as a child were visiting him while he was in jail, and even went so far as to saying that he levitated outside of his cell, and this was recorded on video, and other cellmates witnessed it and were amazed because they heard him talking in an unknown tongue when he was talking to I forget the names of these. I know one of them was Krill, because Krill is something that William Cooper put in his book Behold a Pale Horse, that York took and said that that's one of the extraterrestrials that used to visit him when he was a child, and they came to visit him and said that he's going to be all right, and they cured him of his hereditary angioedema. So in conclusion,
so
go ahead.
So York was off from the start. So reading all this stuff basically fed into his psychosis and just made him worse because nobody checked him.
Yeah. Oh, and that's a good, you made a very good point there. He was able to release publication books, and he wasn't mentally stable. And people were quoting this guy, going out teaching this to people, spreading the teachings of a madman. So the individual, even though we don't know what his mental state was at the time, he must have in some way, shape, or form came in contact with some of Dr. York's teachings, and I say doctor purposely, came in contact with his teachings and the storyline regarding Yaaquub having or wanting to seek revenge on the people that brought him to shame may have been what that last part that he needed that justified his actions. We probably will never know, but it's something that is worth looking into. And I have no problems, sharing what I knew with detectives that were, asking questions about it. So at least that's one scenario that they can put into the equation. And they were very interested in that part of it, because it's like, what? Especially the part that said, well, where is this guy? And this guy, he's serving 135 years in Colorado Supermax. So it was like, oh my God. But anyway, so in conclusion, from what we've read from York on this topic, it was plagiarized from several sources and given new talking points, which were taken in part from the biblical narrative of Jacob, aka Yaaquub, with a little coding from the old 1970s Saturday Night Live skit featuring the Conehead family, as you see here. In the Nation of Islam's teachings, the amazing stories, science fiction, nor does the Bible make mention of any cone-shaped heads. The Coneheads were an alien family, natives of the planet Ramulak, who find themselves stranded on Earth. The story was and remains pure entertainment and comedy. York convinced himself and attempted to convince his followers that the stories of the Coneheads was true, with the elaborate storyline found in his publications. Even to this day, Nuwaubians continue to embrace Coneheads, even wearing the weird half cone-shaped headdress, even parading a cartoon illustration of York adorned in one. And it doesn't, well, you take a look at it. Now, this is the Nuwaubians' imagination, because this headdress came out after York was incarcerated, so he never wore anything like this. But his followers, his blind followers, put this illustration together and put him in this half cone-shaped hat. There you go. And so that's the article. Oh, and by the way, I wanted to let me pull up this also, because it ties into it as well. This is from an article I did. Can Edomites, Asians, Filipinos, Korean, Chinese be Nuwaubian? The reason I put this out was because I got into it on one of these Facebook groups with someone who was talking about the Edomites were Asians. And then, I was quizzing, and this is early on. I was asking him, where are Nuwaubians, can Nuwaubians be Asians, this kind of stuff. And then the guy said, no, they are 6, 7 ether cursed beings and not gods like us. And that's what was the purpose of that. Matter of fact, the guy, Kafre, whomever, whatever, this is where it spilled from. So, wow, just caught that. This coon has an Edomite woman, talking about me, but will slander a Negroid and aid in destroying his own people. What do we call these types of people? Black devils. Wow, dude, you done. It's over for you. After all this time to become someone, you still gonna talk about Doc. Laughing my ass off. Get a life. He's talking about me. 6 and 7 ether. This explains a lot. Your 9 ether spirit force is diminished. Genetic kiss. Maybe you really should read Doc's books. You need them. This explains the rebellion. And that's the person who was saying that in one of these Facebook groups. And I brought up the point that, well, according to the book, was Adam black or white on page 37.
Can I ask a question? Can I ask you to do something real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
Can you run through from the first one to the last York's little reincarnations?
What do you mean?
First they was Ansars, and then
you mean okay.
Yeah,
because I know people are new to this. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So coming from York, got the echo.
Oh, sorry.
After York was off of parole in 1968-69, he established a little following, and he called the Ansar Pure Sufi, where they, had like quasi-Islamic teachings and mystical this and that. He spearheaded the organization after laboring and getting more followers, putting out little tracts and pamphlets, and officially he established the Ansar Law community, which was a living community in initially it was at Coney Island, then it moved to Brooklyn, New York. So from around 1970, so in other words, his what's the best way I want to say it? The burden that we had of him began around 1968, after he was paroled from an incident that happened. Someone was shot in a gang fight. So in 1970, that's when he established the Ansar Law community, and it later evolved and took on a number of different names, and then the Nubian Islamic Hebrews, where he combined the different philosophies, being Muslim yet being somewhat like a quasi-Christian organization with elements of Judaism. And it progressed throughout the 70s, and then he started kind of having little alterations. But over time, he eventually did go over to the Sudan, because at one time he was just a Muslim, but then he later started portraying himself as being a blood descendant of the Prophet Muhammad of Arabia by way of a Sudanese foretold successor called the Mahdi, Mahdi Muhammad Ahmed of Mahdi Muhammad, of 325 or 1945, sorry. And he went over to Sudan. He was able to befriend the former prime minister, who was not the prime minister of Sudan at the time. So when York was lying to the people on, I think it was the Nubian Nation True Light tape, saying, because someone asked a question similar to that, saying, like Bilal Phillips said that Dr. York, or Malachi York at the time, it wasn't even that name, it was Imam Isa, was not related to the Mahdi family of Sudan. So he's saying, quote, why would a man, a prime minister, come to the United Nations building, sit with the delegations in the United Nations, leave the United Nations without security, without any bodyguards, and come down in the middle of the ghetto and sit with a man who's a phony? Sound convincing. But that was the talking point that York used to justify that he was from the family line of the Mahdi of Sudan, and by way of that, taking his bloodline back to the Prophet Muhammad. Now, this is all before York abandoned Islam and said that it was all fake. So around 1989 is when the drastic change came, when there was a release of a publication by Orthodox Sunni Muslims. An individual by the name of Bilal Phillips put out a book called The Ansar Cult in America, which was a lot of it had information presented by former members of the Ansar Nubian Islamic Hebrew Mission in New York. And we knew, as Ansar, we knew it was all to be true, what we were reading, because we were living it. Like on, the sisters happen to be on welfare, when you have to turn your money in, the sisters who get the food stamps, they got to turn all that stuff in. All that stuff we knew was to be true. Sisters being in bed, they were all true. So shortly thereafter, he took flight and had property. He must have bought the property sometime earlier, before it all really hit the fan in 1990, because he did get arrested and had to serve time in jail on the weekends for being arrested on falsifying government documents, which was a fake passport, where he had some white man's ID, and he was trying to use that and have a fake name, Isa al-Hadi al-Mahdi. He had his name legally changed to that, but it hadn't come through yet. So what he wanted to do was have that name and put it in a book, so that it would help to convince the people who doubted that he was related to the Mahdi family, because by him having an ID and it had the name Mahdi on it, then that must be true. He is right there in his government. It's right in his government document. And later on, he would have his name changed a second time. Well, the first time he changed it from Dwight York to Isa al-Hadi al-Mahdi, and then in 1993 it was changed, and then officially go into 94 to Malachi York, or Malachi was the name, Malachi York. Okay. And that the transition from there went from Brooklyn, New York, to upstate New York in the Catskill Mountains of Monticello, where he then took on the name Rabboni Yeshua Bar El Hadi. Think on that. For those who may be new to this, the name that I mentioned is what he called himself, Rabboni Yeshua. But he did not say that he's Jesus. And he would always say that I'm not claiming to be a prophet, even though he says he prophesies about this and that, but he's not a prophet. But he also went by that title, And on his quote Savior's Day and one of the birthdays that celebrations that he had upstate, and that was where the so-called 19 classes where York was giving the new doctrine, and then we had the new garb where we took off the old white Muslim outfits, not to be confused with Sunni Muslims according to York, and that we being originally the Nubian Hebrews, and we wore all black, but we were wearing off-white with this camise. We were starting to wear the Judaic and started practicing the various sacraments of Judaism. And he released a series of books. I don't remember that name of the series, but they were little, very thin tracts, were probably about 4 or 5 pages, and it was all dedicated to Judaism. And then it slowly metamorphosized into a number of other books called the Right Knowledge series. And then we started taking on the name, no longer Nubian Hebrews, but Holy Tabernacle Ministries. And that's when a number of little small books were released, which are little $5 books that, it's a free will offering if you choose to give it or not. Those were books that later propelled the book series called the Supreme Mathematics series, which was supposed to be after all the religious stuff, because in 1991 in one of the upstate classes, he was saying that all that stuff that we were taught as Muslims, as Christians, whatever, all that stuff was good for that time. So now he's giving the truth, and the truth is the right knowledge, which is this garbage that we just read. That's part of his truth. Okay, but as we go on, so just to end it real fast, after upstate New York, he bought property down in Edenton, Georgia, in a dairy town called Edenton, Putnam County, and it was 476 acres of land where he built on only 19 acres. It was there that would eventually be the demise of the Nuwaubian cult, as being directly under York, as he being a free man, because of course in 2002, May 8th, 2002, which will be Mother's Day this year, he was arrested, and he has not been on the streets since. And right now, he currently resides in the Colorado Supermax, serving out his 135 years. For people who make the mistake of saying, and there's some kind of controversy or conspiracy theory, that why would they give a man that has been accused, well, proven to have been a serial child sexual predator, why couldn't they just put him away in, why they got to put him in the place where he's there with terrorists, mafia leaders, gang members, and on and on and on? Well, he was initially at the sentencing, he was sentenced to Leavenworth, Kansas, to serve out his 135 years. But because of disciplinary actions and threatening the family members of the guards at the time, he was put in the maximum security prison, which would be over in Colorado. So that's where he currently resides now. And over time, the Nuwaubians, have tried to break him out. Even that what aided in he not being able to get any writing privileges, where they wanted to secure their property, and he was what do you call it, kidnapped, and all this other garbage that they were trying to say. So that's basically a quick overview of past and present. And right now, the cult is in multiple different directions, numerous offshoots, individuals breaking off on their own, claiming themselves to be this and that.
You want to know the town that Tamaray was in? It was, what's the name of that daggone town?
It was Edenton, Georgia.
Yeah. I mean, if you wouldn't have asked, I could have told you.
Yeah, Edenton, Georgia. Little small town, little dairy town. And it was funny because when we relocated down there, we were coming into this southern town in Georgia dressed like cowboys in the Midwest, black folk. And York's is
that ain't how we dress down in Georgia.
Yeah, I know. And that he should have did more research, at least on that part, because he did say, I don't want y'all coming down here from these cities dressed in all white, scaring these white folks. So people were coming in and he was wearing, coming in with cowboy hats and, I mean, everything you can imagine, and Indian feathers. And York even thought, because remember now, York had was
Wait,
able
I still
to.
got some pictures.
York
Go
was
ahead.
able. Oh yeah. Let's hurry up and wrap this part up because I don't want to. All right. So I don't know where I'm going with, but the whole point of this article about Edomites, et cetera, is just showing you where Asians was an integral part of the Nuwaubian cult. So what I was saying earlier was that when York said in Adam black or white, page 390, Down syndrome is the result of extraterrestrial beings called Teros and Sunayan mixing in with certain humans. The Sunayans have 48 chromosomes instead of 46 chromosomes, in which humans have. The Teros' chromosome structure is so different from Earthlings that when mixed with certain humans cause a defect of 47 chromosomes, which is today called Down syndrome. So he's linking Down syndrome with the mixing of these extraterrestrial beings called Teros who mixed in or had sex with Earthlings. Yeah. So this so I was showing this guy, that's because he motivated me to write this article just to shut him up. York contradicts his initial position that God cursed Esau, producing mongoloidism, Down syndrome. Unless York believes the Teros to be his gods. During all this time writing about Esau being cursed, York allows what he called Edomites or Teros to live, breed, and participate in ancient Nuwaubian sacred ceremonies on his holy land, Tamaray. So this young lady here, Filipino, I took her name off because she asked me to take her name off. But her name, Nin Hania L at the time. You see her in this central figure. That's one of York's daughters, Hagar. And this is one of the Zed festivals. This is one of the last Zed festivals down on the property. This is her office because she was responsible as a co-author for putting together some of these books, like I think it was Risk and Ilium, Fact or Fiction. Does Dr. Malachi York hide the fact that he was Imam Isa? This is how she made the books. This is her office. This is taken from, so you can't blame me for it, but this is taken from a Nuwaubian, a pro Nuwaubian site. That's her at the time. Of course, her daughter, they are adults. She's an adult now, but that's a whole nother story. And apparently, Malachi York didn't believe in what he taught his followers about Asians suffering from a curse resulting in Down syndrome. He had them living the land. One of his personal drivers and sex partners that was an Edomite was this individual here, Ginger Chang, who was also a prosecution witness that testified against York. And I spoke to her. She's a nice girl. She lives over here. And yeah, this article kind of goes into it and destroys or debunks that whole notion. And then the reason it was relevant was because the whole Asian connection to this thing, it hasn't fully been investigated, but some investigators are now looking into it, because I saw it, and hey, if I can help, I'm gonna try to bring a conclusion to what took place, or at least what motivated it. Hell, I'll just offer what I know. And this is a publication that York released called "Are the Caucasians Edomites?" And that was also in the Supreme Mathematics Series Class 1 Students of the Holy Tabernacle. So you can end the stream, or not stream, but you can just take my section out. Stop sharing, in other words, because I think I removed it. You there? I think she stepped away. Okay. So she stepped away. Well, let me go ahead and try to elaborate a little bit more on
I'm
some of
back.
this.
What did you need?
Oh. No, I was saying I'm done with this now, and I think I was just saying that the only reason that this part is relevant was because there was an Asian fellow involved that I don't personally think was a Nuwaubian, but I think he studied the doctrine, and depending on his mental condition at the time, something he may have read influenced his decision to go out and attempt to kill people.
And that's why we do this, Miss Wise, because there's a lot of people out there that still believe this.
Yeah.
Sad to say. Okay. So you got anything else for us, Chuck? Do we have
No,
any
you can end the sharing.
Okay.
Yeah. So, like we are, I try to share with people who may be new to this, or if I can offer some level of clarity, that's what I do. That's what I'm here. And I don't generally talk about York like I used to, because I don't have the time to, because I listen to a Nuwaubian broadcast, and the question was brought up. I don't hear senators anymore. What happened to Chuck? It's like, I'm not going to spend another 10 years talking about this guy day in and day out. And see, when I step away from talking about them, they pull me back in.
Because they want the attention. They want somebody to pay attention to them.
I'm like, what do you want? I mean, I got the website up here. Thanks to Mark Lamont Hill, the website is going to be there forever. So, I mean, what more do I need to do? How many more articles do I need to put up that demonstrates that this organization, the teachings, is pseudo? I first started using this term pseudo back in the 1980s because there was a British band called Pseudo Echo, Pseudo Echo. And now I see it's like all over the place. I think Unc kind of took credit for it to an extent, but I had been using it because of that British band from the 80s. And York is a personification of pseudoism.
Yes,
everything he taught is pseudo.
He was a plagiarist. He was a copyright infringer. He was a
mess.
You thought you saw nature, boy. I didn't say you.
And the reason part of what this discussion is that even though York has been incarcerated about 20 years now, we're now seeing his influence on another generation.
Yep.
And depending on it, some of these people are taking matters into their own hands. Listen, one of the survivors of York that testified against him asked me just yesterday, because I was telling her I was going to go on this thing. She said, because after I showed her the article about the guy that tried to kill, the sniper, she said, "Do you think the Nuwaubians might start trying to go after us?" I said, "No, man, they don't have that kind of. They wouldn't even stand up against the police that were coming in to take their man and their kids. So they ain't gonna do that. The guy that did that may have been a lot of messed up in the head.
But what about the other offshots that came out from York?
Which one?
Like the ones that got left behind and stuff, like from the doctrine switches. That was the guy left behind. From the doctrine switches.
You might be right about it being left behind.
Yeah.
Maybe they went on the beer room.
Yeah, his siblings and his children out here, these rumblings about him, like York Jr., whatever he calls himself now.
Well, from what I've been noticing, because he changed his name, and he knows that name Malachi and Nuwaubians it has just a nasty connotation
If you
behind it.
look back,
That
if you look back
asterisk
far
that's
enough, you find Omar Akron, so he's gonna be in the same boat.
yeah, but to the mass of the population, he's not going under that Nuwaubian thing. And that's
But he's
why
putting
they
Jesus
changed
pieces with York face on them.
that's why they changed the name.
Lord have mercy.
They call themselves now Sabaeans, trying to link themselves up to yet another Arabian group of people. And by going under that name and not parading themselves as Nuwaubians,
See, what disturbs
they
me about this whole thing is usually when they break up a cult, the members get treatment.
mm-hmm.
These people,
But there was no treatment for the Nuwaubians.
yeah, they didn't get any treatment, and they was just let
No
loose
therapy.
into society.
Yeah.
And it's like
in there.
them and their children, and these people have not been checked since Tamaray got raided. They've been running around and they've been teaching their children whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So they everywhere. Some
Yeah,
of
they
them
are.
you can't
And
spot, and some of them you can.
yeah, and some
to Omar Akron. He
yeah.
in South Carolina, y'all. I just want y'all to know he in South Carolina going by Omar Akron with that gray painted beard on. Walking around looking like a half elderly Thundercat. I can't with him. Now that boy, if anybody need help, that boy need help.
Well, I mean, even this I think it's the second oldest Jacob was pointing out that for what it's worth, the mental issues is prevalent or had something to do with that family.
But just from the simple fact that he has York's costume still, and he has donated them to some kind of cult organization, lets me know right there that he has not been deprogrammed in any shape, form, or fashion. And that's what scares me about these people. They all over and they everywhere.
They're all over. As a matter of fact, just like Mujahid 72 is making Sabaeans. I saw another sect in UK London, Holy Cook Church, and one in Jamaica. Yeah, that's Holy Cook. That was one of York's. York, as a matter of fact, the guy who runs that, his name is Amadou Varma. He calls himself Haru Hotep. He was a part of that so-called triad of Atum Ray, which was Haru Hotep, Khonsu Hotep, and Mentu
they rejected it, Nuwaubians. That's the catch. You can't make somebody get treatment. They stopped that back in the 70s, I think. I think it was the 70s. By the time they had got them, you don't have to accept treatment. They went on about their merry little way. It's not that they didn't offer it, I don't believe. Because I know they had the witnesses in treatment. So I know the other ones was offered
that's true.
And seen by the Nature Boy little crew over there. They denied the people when they came to try to help them. And
same thing.
You have to do is say no, we don't want no help.
Yeah. And keep in mind, York isn't getting any help either. He's still, and he's gotten worse, of course.
Yeah.
And if in fact he is dictating, because he didn't actually write these books, he would the sisters who worked in the office, some of the victims, they would type what he wanted, and if there was something he's okay, well, add this in, add that in. According to them, they're telling me this. And they would do what they needed to do to make it a book, get whatever they wanted from whatever source they felt necessary to get it out there to convince people. So yeah, that was part of how it was done,
Yeah.
And he would give those books when they first would be released. He would give it to us as students, and we would proofread them. Yeah. The triad, there was the initial triad, and then there was a triad that was going to be myself and two other brothers. But because something had happened, that was put on the back burner. And then there was another triad that he formed down on Tamaray, and I think one of the brothers is he's on the lecture circuit now. You see him on Sonetta TV
Who
and various other
onslaught?
places.
Who
Huh?
onslaught? He said, isn't he claiming indigenous now? Who would you be referring to? Haru or York or who?
I mean, Haru is in Europe right now, so I don't know. So yeah, that's pretty much it. So my my whole point in this discussion
Mm-hmm.
was just putting something out there to just make you, or just consider the connection, the possible connection. And it just goes to show that people that have mental disorders can take this stuff serious
They don't need to
and
be
use it to their
exposed
benefit.
to it at all. I mean, I don't believe in book burning and stuff, but these ain't got no ISBN codes, so I don't
No,
think it
no,
counts.
no. And the few that they did eventually put on the books, they were bogus codes.
No, onslaught. That wasn't his last transformation. He was what was he before he went to jail? He turned into a reverend preacher right for trial.
Yeah, yeah, he was. He
God
was. No,
was gonna save him.
he wa-
God say, I'm not interested.
he was. Thanks, 72. He was. What is the name he went by? He was. Damn, I forgot. Oh, he had the Holy Seed Baptist Synagogue. It was called the Holy Seed. No, it was called one branch was called the Holy Seed Baptist Synagogue, and then the other one called the ancient. No, it was called the Holy. What? Damn, I forgot the name. It was called the Holy the Holy Church of Christ.
Lord. Well, I wouldn't say connect so much as intersect, Miss Wise, because people bounce from thing to thing. These are people that's
Mm-hmm.
on a discovery journey of whatever type.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yes, yes.
you might see them intersect because like Moo been through several different things. So you know,
You know,
it's a weird combination that has to result in a perfect storm for cult to form,
yeah,
and it gets
yeah.
easier with
I mean,
social media.
a lot of I'm speaking from a male perspective. But, a lot of guys, they reach a certain point in our life, and we go through this discovery, and we want to know, and then in making this journey and this search, some of us make the mistake of gravitating towards individuals who have a separate agenda, as more sinister plans in the formation of that institution they may have established. And sometimes, for some, it was too late to get out, mentally. Some of them are just messed up right now. I know a lot of guys who are Ansars that, are in homes, can't take care of themselves, have nothing, lost everything, no insurance. And that was part of, the call itself. Because when you moved into the Nubian Islamic Hebrew mission, you didn't have health insurance. You didn't have life insurance. You didn't have dental plans. You didn't have nothing. You have no benefits. You would go out every day and you would try to sell and make as much money as you possibly could and bring it home to the cult and turn it in. Usually, if say you made, because I knew some guys who made money, a lot of money. One brother, Wadafa, who used to sell go-go tapes on F Street in DC, his quota for himself was 500 a day. He would turn in 150, maybe 200, and then pocketed the rest. Well, some days he wouldn't go out; he still turn in his quota, because the quota in DC at that time, back in 90, I think it was 91, was $150. In Baltimore we had it. It was well, we went on a different administration because the brother who Matim eventually came in, and then there was another guy that got pushed out because of some dirty stuff he did, and he just pushed the guy Matim out of Brooklyn. He just had the quota set at $75, or I think um I forget the brother's name. If he's still in the audience, he's in Baltimore now. He remembers. He was there with me. And I don't remember exactly. I think it was $75 to $100, which was the quota. So you just turn in your money, and then in Baltimore, of course, we had a much easier way. But in DC, you turn in your money, you had nowhere to really go, and so that money, whoever had the highest amount that they turned in, they get to have sex with their loved one at the time at this pissy place called the Green Room, which was on Florida Avenue, and at that time it was in a really bad neighborhood because they were selling drugs outside there, and you had prostitutes. It was right there, right near the old Howard Theater when it was still abandoned, and that was the way it was. So a lot of brothers who couldn't be with their girlfriends or wives, quote unquote mates, they had girlfriends on the outside. So after they finished peddling, quote unquote, and they had their quota, they just go over their girl's house, smash her off, and then come back home to the community. But as long as you turn in your money, nobody cared. Is Risk near Planet Rock? That's ironic, yeah. And that album from Africa Bambaataa, Planet Rock, was recorded in the York studio. And the artwork was done by the sister who did a lot of the illustrations for York's publications, like Moses and Jesus and all this other stuff. Joyce Hayes, yeah, she did the artwork for that album when Africa Bambaataa had linked up with York and the Nubian nation, which York pioneered as a means to gain more followers and build a coalition against the Sunni Muslims by having a younger crowd as opposed to a bunch of old Muslims. Yeah.
Chuck, I think you done blew they mind enough for one night. I knew he's in here.
Nah, it's all good. I mean, like I said, I don't talk about it really anymore. It's not all in vain. I appreciate that, but I reflect on my life with the organization, and did I waste my life with it? On one hand, yeah, but I think on the other hand, what I endured, it prepared me to be able to help people who are in cults, and particularly that cult, and with the website being able to offer some type of remedy or a potion to kind of fight it. Because if you got enough information to show the nonsense and the lunacy, because this is stuff that
Chuck falls down, but he gets up. Chuck falls down, but he gets up. Positive energy, family, positive energy. Chuck, if you can hear me, move to where your signal is better. And he fell down, but he got up.
yeah, this character, this character is who the Nation of Islam, the teachings of it, is coming from a man that really has the information to wake y'all up. But it was all part of the game to try to gain more followers, And that, again, during the time when he started coming with this stuff, that was when he was trying to get as many Nation of Islam members, and they a lot of them did come over. A lot of the old heads saying that, Doc is explaining the teachings of Elijah Muhammad better than Farrakhan or better than Silas or anybody else, because York knew exactly what to do, what to say, because of the charisma and his presentation. And of course, having other people write the books for him and have it done around the clock, he gives the impression that this is not normal. This is some kind of divine situation here. No man in history has ever released 100 books a year. That's what York said. It must be divine. No, it was some sisters who didn't get paid, who were doing this stuff and being sexually abused on the side. And if they didn't do it, they would be outcast within the organization. And at the same time, these books brought him millions of dollars. Brought him millions. Pseudoism. Of course, he would mix a little bit of truth here and there because that was the hook. If you see this, oh yeah, and you go to the Bible, oh yeah, that's what it said. Oh, and then he starts, remember, I came giving you what you want, so you'll learn to think on the level of what I really have to give. I think it was from the True Light tape, Who and What Are You, where he says, quote, I came giving you what you think you want, so you'll learn to think on the level of what I really have to give or what you need. And now we kind of look at it, say, oh, so this is what you really have to give, which was something to gain revenue, fame, and sex. A career criminal, a juvenile delinquent who is released from parole in 1968 ventures off into a hustle, which was Islam. And he was able to ride it all the way up successfully, even to meeting an ex-prime minister of a prominent royal family in Sudan. Even go there as an invitee. But it was funny about that, even when he did, and he even put it in his own book, that while he was there, one of the members of that family said that he was a phony. The man didn't even speak Arabic. He can look at him, he got a bone in his nose. That's not Sudanese. He was saying all of this stuff. And York put it in the book. In the book, The Ansar Cult Rebuttal to the Slanderers. That's a word that if you hear it, you would always hear coming from a Nuwaubian. Anybody that says anything that's not praising York, you're a slanderer. And I try to make sure that with the website, anything that I write or some of these like shows, I want to make sure that is real, is right, is verifiable, so they can't say that I'm slandering him. So I'll quote York, I'll quote his writings, and anything that's used to that you can verify the commentary that I'm making. So you can't call me a slanderer. All I'm doing is presenting what he said and what is written in his own publications. So no, he is not in the Guinness Book of Records as having the most books ever written. That title goes to another group out of about 5 individuals. As a matter of fact, there's an article on the website, Right Knowledge Gone Wrong. No, plagiarism, I think it is, where we show you the individuals who has the Guinness Book of Records as having the most books ever written. So I don't know, it's been so long to so much stuff on that website. I don't even remember some of. So if you go, you might have to find. I don't remember exactly where it is, but just go through it. It's pretty interesting. As a matter of fact, where I'm proofreading the book that's that I and someone else is releasing, that's documenting this stuff. It's really but bits and pieces from the website. But I figured that if people had it in book form, they could take it with them. If they want to use it as an antidote against the Nuwaubian nonsense, they'll be able to use it and they can quote York. And then there's nothing much they can say other than, oh, well, that was what he was saying at that time. That was that school. That's the way that he justified his lies by saying that, oh, it's a school. When I was saying that, when York was saying that, and he's saying that when he was saying that Jesus of 2,000 years ago is not real, he never existed. But in 1989, he was claiming that Jesus of 2,000 years ago, Jesus Yeshua, was one of the beings that speak through him, because he was an avatar. And these beings of old, men of renown, were speaking through him. So you see these types of inconsistencies. How can Jesus be real and speaking through you to give the truth to the people, yet he never existed? And then he did exist, because he goes from he didn't exist, or he did exist, didn't exist, and now he exists. As a matter of fact, we're all Christians now. That's what he was saying just prior to his arrest. That he had a revelation, and he knew, and he was trying to get the point across, is that I know what I'm saying. I know I'm very comfortable in Egyptology, which he wasn't even talking Egyptology. But he was saying that he was comfortable in knowing his Egyptology, and all the Sumerian stuff and Enki and all of that stuff. But when God touches your heart and speaks to you, you got to go with it. And the rest is history. And then after he got incarcerated, I guess he said, forget about it. Now I can go back to lying to the people on another level. Still lying, but just on another level. So now Nuwaubians are just all over the place. They're getting these publications that's released through the administration, and they're putting anything that they can find and then labeling, oh, York, this is something that York said, and they're passing out. They're making money. Somebody's making money off of it. I mean, some of their poor followers that are still trying to hold on to the old way are still out in the street with tables trying to sell this stuff, incense and oils, still living in the 1990s. And it's sad, But then again, if you've been in this thing for like 20 years, 30 years, I mean, what life do you have? So you might as well just ride it out until, you drop, because you don't have any health insurance. You have no burial insurance. So you just become another burden of the state when you die. I mean, I can give you a whole list of brothers that have passed on that were Ansars or Nuwaubians, you know, that had to be buried by, the Christian church and all this other stuff, because they just didn't prepare for the future. So now we got a bunch of old men and women that have no real nothing to really fall back on in life. And they just look back and saying that, wow, I was a part of that organization. And that's, I guess, is satisfactory to them. But some of us made it out, and some of us will not go back to that. And I just try to offer what my experience was and what I learned and knew with studying this stuff and being around York myself and the organization. And I just share it. Anybody that's got, some information that they want, I'll be more than happy to share it with them. And that's it. Other than that, I really don't talk about him. He is irrelevant in 2022. You don't even have pictures of him anymore. The last we heard of him was last year, when he was secretly recorded in a session with attorneys, where even the guy that they were trying to hire to get him released and placed in a medical facility, and he's going on talking about stuff, that the lies that he was telling, saying that he's a Liberian diplomat and his name is on this, and then even the guy was like, who deals with that kind of international stuff, saying they're lying to you. I put it on my channel. You can hear it. You can hear it for yourself. That's the last we heard of him. So, these
Could
people,
one
they
of the
just
lovely mods drop Chuck's channel in the chat, please, for those of y'all that don't already have it?
okay. Yeah. So that's what I do. So yeah, I don't even talk about it unless people want some information, or something like this comes up. The brother, I forget his name, Ctep, he had sent me a clip and some pictures. I'm like, oh, whoa, what is this? And I'm like, this is in DC, and I ain't hear about it. So that was how I was able to, and I wanted to just kind of talk about it a little bit and offer my take on it, in terms of how that picture could have some relevancy to what may have possibly inspired or even motivated him to go out and try to kill people. Because who knows? Because there's not much to talk about in regards to the person because he's dead, and who knows, maybe he was ridiculed, bullied, and he decided to get some automatic weapons, sniper rifles, and start plucking off people that I guess maybe he felt were part of the problem. And his justification is that this is what happened to Yaaquub. That's my man. That's why he's over there on the wall. You don't usually put a picture of a character or a person unless they mean something to you. And so it goes.
And there you have it, folks. That's all the time that we have for tonight. Please give Chuck a round of ones for coming and being willing to do this for us. I know I appreciate it. I know y'all appreciate it. Oh my goodness.
I'm losing my voice because I was, where I work overnight, so I'm losing my voice. But it is what it is. But I'll get some sleep shortly. But a matter of fact, my stepdaughter's birthday today, so we gotta go out and celebrate.
Happy birthday to her. We gonna close this one out, and we gonna be back in 15 minutes with Curb Service.
Thank you, Don Williams Jr.
Tribute to Fife Dog from A Child Called Quest with Lady Gigi and DJ Bootleg. That is 8 p.m. Eastern Time sharp in 15 minutes.
All right.
Chuck, any last words?
Only last words is thank y'all for listening. I really do appreciate it. Just standing with me and over these years, I appreciate it. I really do. I really, really do. Because if there was no audience that wanted to know more, and there is more, there's more. If something comes up and it scratches the surface that's needed to discuss, by all means, I'll be there. Matter of fact, Friday, some reporter wanted to do an interview, so I can send it to that. So we'll see what happens with that. I'll probably post it on my YouTube channel.
Okay. And y'all can always go to the Trip C's House page on Facebook for those of you that are in there to get all the updates, because I post most everything on there for y'all. So yeah, let me drop that in the chat as well for those of y'all that have Facebook. We gonna go. Oh yes, and we have a special exclusive from Boss Man Blake, BTBG Group, also a Black Sector Mafia, that will be played during Curb Service. I don't know what time yet, whenever I feel froggy. And after that, of course, we can do the after show, and y'all can pester me for a little while about Malachi York, because we need to let Chuck go to bed so he'll still be willing to come back and do these.
You Chuck. All right.
Okay, well, I'll see you later, Chuck. Thank you so much for coming up.
I appreciate you. Talk later.
You too.